go to the same place, we must force our coordination.
And then thirdly, we're also hoping that through the industries that have been identified as industries that are being boosted or are going to provide a boost to the economy, your infrastructure, your green economies, we're hoping that they're going to then say how young people are designed into those economies, so that young people are not hoping that the jobs are going to trickle down to them, but the minister is going to say this is how young people are being thought about in as far as these industries. And then lastly, we're hoping for more clarity around the SRD grants. A lot of young people who are unemployed
The outlook was stark. State capture had hollowed out critical institutions and weakened state-owned institutions. South Africa had been downgraded to junk status by the last of the three major credit ratings agencies in 2020. The devastation of the coronavirus pandemic, coupled with the Russia-Ukraine conflict, had dealt a blow to the global growth. And in 2023, the Financial Action Task Force had placed South Africa on its grey list. The warning lights were flashing. Public finances were under severe strain, and growth had stalled. Faced with this crisis, we chose not to be defined by it. Instead, we turned it into a catalyst for change. We commit to a clear reform agenda, we committed to a clear reform agenda and a disciplined fiscal strategy built on three principles: stabilize debt, invest in infrastructure, and spend better. Today, that commitment has delivered tangible results. For the first time in 17 years, debt will stabilize and it will continue to fall in the coming years. The budget deficit has narrowed significantly, and the debt service costs are also falling. The world has taken notice. South Africa has been removed from the FATF grey list. We secured our first credit rating upgrade in 16 years, and borrowing costs have eased, creating space for growth and development. These are signals of restored credibility, of renewed resilience, and of a nation regaining its foot. The lesson is a simple but powerful one. Steady structural reform and responsible public finances are the bedrock of a prosperous and more inclusive South Africa. Honourable members, allow me to turn to the global and domestic economic outlook. The global economy is projected to grow by 3.3% in 2026, broadly in line with last year's outcome. Advanced economies are expected to grow moderately, while emerging markets will continue to anchor global momentum. India and sub-Saharan Africa in particular are forecast to grow more strongly, supported by resilient domestic demand. These developments are unfolding within an unprecedented global trade environment, characterized by persistent geopolitical tensions and shifting trade policies which are reshaping supply chains. In response, we need to diversify our trade portfolios and secure our markets, reduce vulnerabilities to external shocks, and position ourselves to benefit from the emerging global growth centers. On the domestic front, our growth outlook is steadily improving. We project real economic growth of 1.6% in 2026, an improvement from the 1.4% estimated in 2025. This improvement reflects the continued strengthening of economic performance from the second half of 2025. Over the medium term, growth is expected to average 1.8%, reaching 2% by 2028. Persistent logistics, bottlenecks, weak public infrastructure, and the recent outbreak of the foot-and-mouth disease continue to weigh on economic activity and pose risks to the outlook. In the light of this, rapid inclusive growth remains our only durable path forward. Our efforts to promote faster economic growth continue to revolve around four pillars. First, maintaining macroeconomic stability, implementing structural reforms, investing in growth-enhancing infrastructure, and build state capacity. These pillars are the foundation upon which inclusivity is built and how we ensure that growth is faster. Madam Speaker, a key facet of macroeconomic stability is prudent fiscal management that advances socio-economic obligations. Our fiscal strategy involves four features. A, support economic growth by accelerating public investment, improve the efficiency of public spending, improve the composition of spending by containing the public service wage bill while increasing capital investment, entrenching sustainable public finances with a principles-led fiscal anchor. We are already reaping the fruits of this strategy. The consolidated budget deficit has narrowed to 4.5% of GDP for 25-26, an improvement from 4.8% that we estimated in the 25 budget. The deficit falls to 4% in 26-27 and 3.1% the year after. Gross debt stabilizes as share of GDP in 25-26 at 78.9%. In 2026, it falls further to 77.3% of GDP and declines to 76% by 28-29. This slightly higher debt peak this year reflects weaker nominal GDP growth and our decision to take advantage of strong investor demand in domestic and global markets by increasing our issuance in 25-26. The main budget primary surplus for 25-26 reaches 0.9% of GDP. In the next financial year, it expands to 1.6% and then to 1.9% in 27-28. By 28-29, we see it reaching a 2.3%. Honorable Speaker, to sustain fiscal discipline, we intend to continue the engagement on fiscal anchors. We aim to introduce a proposal of a principle-based fiscal anchor in the medium-term budget policy statement after thorough consultation in Cabinet, Parliament, and with the public. Just as inflation targeting provided clarity and credibility to monetary policy, the fiscal anchor aims to entrench fiscal credibility. Madam Speaker, the structural reforms to lift growth we are implementing alongside the fiscal strategy reflect an understanding that the state should adjust to the needs of the national economy in a flexible way. Operation Vulindlela must be understood in this context. In terms of energy reforms, we are stabilizing electricity supply and building a competitive, reliable energy market. Regulatory reforms in this sector have unlocked significant private investment, accelerating generation capacity and driving the transition towards cleaner, reliable power. In logistics, we are dismantling bottlenecks in rail and ports that have throttled exports and raised the cost of doing business. Our intention is to bolster public-private investment in rail operations while retaining state ownership of the rail infrastructure. The objective is to move goods faster, cheaper, and more reliable. Reforms in local government include shifting to a performance-linked utility model for water and electricity services. This is aimed at strengthening financial sustainability, accountability, and transparency. Spatial and housing reforms focus on restructuring our cities to ensure that people have access to affordable housing located closer to centers of economic activity. This is a systematic effort to remove the structural blockages that have held back growth for many years. Madam Speaker, over the past 3 years, our tax system has demonstrated resilience despite slow economic growth. For 25-26, the gross tax revenue is revised upwards by 21.3 billion compared to the estimate in the 25 budget. Higher than expected net VAT, corporate income tax, and dividends tax collections improved the year-in-year outlook. As a result, government has decided to withdraw the 20 billion in tax increases provisionally included in the May 25 budget. The improved fiscal position allows us enough room to withdraw the proposed tax increases without putting fiscal sustainability or economic activity at risk. We are also proposing additional tax measures to ease financial burden on households and businesses by adjusting personal income tax brackets and rebates fully in line with inflation. Ndibuyisela imali back ezipokothweni zenu. Honest and in tax ngoku ndinika nje imali back. Madam Speaker, our national savings and investment rate is far below the levels needed to truly create generational wealth and support local investment in the economy. To encourage South Africans to save more, we propose that the tax-free annual investment limit be increased from 36 to 46,000 per year. The limit to retirement fund deductions be raised from 350,000 to 430,000, allowing individuals to invest more each year on a tax-free basis. Madam Speaker, each year we ask South Africans to send in their tips for the budget. This year we got more than 1,200 citizens sent us their opinions and suggestions. Renate Oosthuizen, a small business owner from Gauteng, had this tip. Minister Godongwana, please increase the VAT registration threshold for small business to 2 million. The 1 million threshold has not kept pace with the cost of doing business, close quote. Renate, you will be happy to know that in this budget, the compulsory VAT registration threshold increases from 1 million to 2.3 million. We are taking other measures to support small business. We are raising the capital gains tax exemption for the sale of small business for older persons from 1.8 to 2.7 million. This applies to small business worth 15 million instead of 10 million previously. It will enable small business owners to receive more tax relief when they sell their business. Madam Speaker, increases to certain taxes are unavoidable. That's the bad part of me. For 2026, excise duties on tobacco will unfortunately be increased in line with inflation. This includes excise duties on electronic nicotine and non-nicotine delivery system. As a result, a tax of 20 pack of cigarettes rises from 22.81 to 23.58. Pipe tobacco rises by 28 cents per 25 grams, and cigarettes tobacco by 87 cents per 50 grams. Cigars rise by 4.56 per 23 grams. The excise on alcohol beverage also rises by inflation. As such, a 340 milliliter can of beer or cider increases by 8 cents. A 750 milliliter bottle of wine goes by 15 cents. A 750 million bottle of spirits will increase by 320. In terms of the fuel levy, the total increase will also be in line with inflation. The general fuel levy will go up by 9 cents per liter for petrol and 8 cents per liter for diesel. The carbon fuel levy will go up by 5 cents per liter for petrol and 6 cents for diesel. The road accident fund fuel levy will increase by 7 cents per litre. Honourable members, the strong revenue collection this year and the overall resilience of the tax administration reflects an efficient and agile tax administration, continually improving through targeted compliance initiative. However, the scourge of illicit trade represents a major threat to these hard-won gains. It threatens our economy, endangers consumers, and robs the fiscus of billions in revenue. The recent announcement by a major tobacco producer that will close its local operation is a stark reminder of the impact of illicit trade on the jobs and overall economy. The sophisticated and organized nature of illicit operations demands an intensive effort to curb this trade, secure prosecutions, and dismantle its supply chains. SARS has already intensified its efforts. It will also continue its joint operations with border management, the SAPS, and the Defence Force. I always improvise. I improvise, wait a little.
Order, honourable members, can the minister continue with his speech?
Yes, I'm just, this thing has failed me.
It's page 7, Minister, page 7.
Order, honourable members,
He
I
lost
know
his
you are trying
speech.
to help, but you
The
should
reason
have
I
raised
said-
it through the speaker. Thank you very much, Honourable Mawujo. Minister, you can
I said
proceed.
SARS has already intensified its efforts. It will also continue its joint operations with the Border Management Agency, the SAPS, and the Defence Force to stop the illicit trade in tobacco. I'm going to come back in later when I talk about the crime and peace and security. On the financial sector, Madam Speaker, National Treasury continues to work on ensuring that financial services customers are treated fairly and the sector operates optimally. One key issue is the more than 88 billion rand of unclaimed financial assets and benefits. Following recommendations from the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, National Treasury will introduce reforms to manage these unclaimed benefits through the creation of a central administrator responsible for record keeping and tracing. We will also shortly publish draft regulations under the Currency and Exchange Act to include crypto assets in our capital inflow management regime. Crypto assets will now be governed in the cross-border movement of capital framework, which will be complementary to regulations already in place to prevent use of crypto assets to launder money and commit fraud. The use of data and artificial intelligence has become a critical for the future development of economies worldwide. As such, data infrastructure should be considered as critical as electricity, ports, and transport networks. This year, we will explore options to help data centers and related infrastructure to expand this investment in South Africa and solidify our role as a regional hub for these technologies. One of the main policy objectives is to ensure that the financial sector supports regional integration and the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. National Treasury is easing restrictions on the cross-border flows of capital by enabling domestic asset managers to manage portfolios of foreign assets. This will improve competitiveness and allow South African to co-function as a hub for investment into the continent. National Treasury, working with the South African Reserve Bank, has prioritized modernizing the national payment system and innovation in digital finances. The payment ecosystem management has achieved its first milestone, and with the establishment of the payments utility, which was completed in November last year, with the establishment of Pay-in Corporation. Pay-in will provide open, shared digital payments infrastructure to support operational ability across various payment providers, serving as the main platform for high-value and retail transactions. In the budget in May 25, we made the statement that we will do everything possible to use savings arising or expenditure reviews to fund future projects. In other words, tax will be the last resort. Madam Speaker, in this context, in this budget last year, as we have said, we have kept that promise through our commitment to finding savings from unproductive expenditure, closing leakages, and rooting out inefficiencies. I'm happy to announce that 12 billion in savings have been identified over the medium term. Targeted and responsible savings are not a once-off initiative. They will be an ongoing and entrenched part of the budget process going forward to weed out inefficiencies and low-performance programs. Every program and every allocation must demonstrate value, efficiency, and accountability. As part of this process, the public transport network grant has been scaled down by about 8.4 billion over the next 3 years. The grant has not improved access to public transport relative to the investment made. The grant will, however, continue to help cover indirect costs in cities that run business bus services. Enhanced targeting of social grants, authentication of beneficiaries to reduce fraud in the grant system will yield 3 billion of savings. The South African Social Security Agency has its biometric and income verification process resulted in nearly 35,000 grants being identified as incorrect, fraudulent, and therefore terminated. Honorable members, we are committed to improving access to many South Africans deserving and eligible for social support. Abuse of the system, however, will not be tolerated. The remaining savings from the TARs are reallocated to strengthen capacity in the judiciary, border management, defense, and state SAC. Madam Speaker, to secure the skills essential to modern economy, government is reforming the skills development levy paid by employers to fund sector education and training authorities of SETAs, and the National Skills Fund have not yielded the outcomes we expected. We must improve how we equip individuals ready to enter the labor market. Beyond providing them a theoretical understanding, the government will explore ways to reorganize training by introducing a dual training skills acquisition system, while looking at how institutions with the capacity to train job seekers and graduates can tool them with artisanal skills. Turning to the spending priorities, the budget we're tabling this in for 26-27 will spend 2.67 trillion rand. This spending includes a proposed 5 billion in the contingency reserves to cater for disasters declared since the medium-term budget policy statement. In other words, the disasters that took place in January this year. Government spending remains highly distributive. The social wage accounts for more than 60% of non-interest spending over the medium term. Basic education, health, and social protection constitute 70.3% of the social wage in 26-27, providing support to 13.6 million school children, healthcare service to 84% of the population, social grants to 26.5 million beneficiaries. Coming to social grants, bendicinga ogogo ndizabanyusela kakhulu kodwa ndibanyuselanga ngolu hlobo bendicinga uba zabanyusela ngalo kulo nyaka, kodwa ndiyabanyusela, kodwa ndiyabahoya. Kodwa ndiyabahoya. Social grants are allocated 292.8 billion rand, enabling the following increases. The old age grant, disability grant, and care dependence grants rise by 80 rand in April 2026 to 2,400. The same applies to the War Veterans Grant, which increases by 80 rand to 2,420. The foster care grant goes up from 1.2 in April, a 40 rand increase, and to 1,300 in October, a 10 rand increase. Child support grant and grant in aid grant increased by 20 rand. The social relief of distress continues in the current form over this year. Let me clarify. The SRD is in the baseline of the budget. That's not in dispute. When we say continue, the president said it should be converted into a libelous term. What we will then be doing during the course of the year, between now and the next financial year, is to give content to that. Is to give content to that, what is going to look like, what has been eligibility criteria, and so on and so on. So there's no dispute that is not going to be in the system. On peace and security, Madam Speaker, the President in his State of the Nation announced the deployment of the Defence Force alongside police to fight illegal mining and gangsterism. To support this and other efforts to intensify law and order, spending on peace and security increases from 268.2 billion in 25-26 to 291.2 billion in 28-29. Border Management Authority has been allocated an additional 990 million rand over the medium term to build capacity by filling 738 posts. 2.7 billion is added to defense over the medium term to improve operations, including maintaining the South African Air Force fighting capability. A quick question arises, and people was also asked this question in the media, about what about the additional deployment of the Defence Force? I'm saying the law acknowledges that the President may, at any point in time, deploy the armed forces. It doesn't say the President will first check whether there's a budget or something else. If there's war tomorrow, he can say, hey, just go and sit and have a budget. No, the war is going to send the army to go and fight. That's how these things work. Then it's for us to say, in the light of that, Section 16 of the Act of the PFMA considers that deployment as an emergency. We will be working with the Defence Force in this regard to finalize that. But in addition to this, we have given both the Defence Force and the police through the CARA Fund 1 billion each. 1 billion the police, 1 billion the Defence Force for crime prevention strategy. Over the medium term, 883 million is shifted from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to the Office of the Chief Justice. This will enable the Office of the Chief Justice to manage its own budget, enhance its independence from the executive from the 1st of April this year. Similar arrangements for the funding of Parliament are being undertaken in the spirit of separation of powers. In other words, Parliament itself must not rely on the executive for the performance of its functions. An additional 687 million has been allocated to increase capacity in the judiciary over the medium term. The President also announced the establishment of special courts. Once the costing is finalized, allocation for this will be considered later in the year. We have had a discussion with the judiciary insofar as this is concerned, together with the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, and examining how do we give effect to this injunction by the President. We have agreed on 3 phases. The first one is that there are courts that currently are under pressure, and we need to see how can we deal with that pressure. Secondly, we need to look at what does this mean, this establishment of these additional courts in terms of the number of judges? And how soon can we do that? And we have put up some technical teams with the Office of the Chief Justice to pursue this injunction by the President. There are also a number of commissions of inquiry which are taking place. Some of them have asked for an extension. We'll also be looking at how do we fund that extension over time. The special appropriation we're tabling before you of 8.5 billion today looks at 5.8 billion for PRASA rolling stock fleet renewal program. If I may explain to you, how does this thing work? PRASA has had a contract with Gibela. They've got to order a minimum of 35 locomotives per annum. If failure to order 35 is a breach of contract. So we've got to make sure that PRASA continues with its contractual obligations. We've got to pay for up subscription to the World Bank, which we have not been paying for a while, of about R1 billion. We are providing 700 million rand to the Department of Communications and Digital Technologies. We are making this money to the department without earmarking it, because we want them, for now, while we are looking into the details of how we're going to fund the Centec Diet, the SABC, and the SAPO. They should be able to meet this through this flexibility. On the division of revenue, which is the division of revenue says how money between the different spheres of government is allocated. 48.9% of national raised revenue is allocated to national government, and 41.7% to the provinces, and 9.4% to local government. I must express this point, Mr. President, that although the quantum that goes to to municipalities is increasing, but as a percentage of the share, there's a decline from about 9.7 to 9.4. And I think it's something we need to be attending. Translated into rands and cents, national gets 951 billion rand, provinces 810 billion rand, municipalities 182 billion rand. Additional allocation to provinces equitable share include 348 million rand to progressively equalize grade R teacher pay, 340 million rand for early retirement and voluntary exit programs, 390 million rand for the Presidential Employment Initiative. 1.5 billion is added to provincial roads maintenance grant in the 26-27 to fund the carry-through costs of disaster that occurred between April 2024 and June 2025. Basic education. In terms of the consolidated expenditure, spending on education remains the largest component at 23.7% over the medium term. Basic education receives 22.7 billion for carry-through costs announced in May 2025. Early childhood development receives the majority of these funds. 9.9 billion supports employee compensation and other pressures in education. Early childhood, as I've said, development grant receives an additional 12.8 billion over the next 3 years, expanding services to an additional 300,000 children. This will also maintain the increase per child per day subsidy of 24 rand introduced in 25-26. The increased allocation aligned to the National School Nutrition Program to food inflation to continue to provide meals to over 9.9 million learners in almost 20,000 schools. In health and education, Madam Speaker, 26 billion rand is allocated to provide provinces to bolster our HIV/AIDS program, such as the prevention of mother-to-child transmission and the provision of antiretroviral drugs. That's 26 billion. A part of the targeted responsibility and saving initiative, provinces will repurpose some of their funding. We've agreed on this with provinces. Some of their funding to meet the obligation towards the PEPFAR. This follows the funding withdrawal by the United States of America. 21.3 billion is allocated to health sector over the medium term for the compensation and employment of doctors and to make up for the shortfalls in goods and service expenditure. On local government, 86 billion is to support the provision of free basic services to 11 million households. Assuming, I'm making this assumption, assuming these 11.2 households are in the indigent register. If they are not, there's a challenge. Local government is the sphere where communities experience the state most directly. Yet, many municipalities are in financial and operational distress and therefore unable to deliver services as they should. Audit outcomes highlight this unacceptable reality. 63% of municipalities are in financial distress and the proportion of clean audits remains unacceptably low. A central challenge with municipalities is that they not only differ in capacity, but also in their revenue-raising potential. This demands a more targeted approach to respond to the diverse pressures facing municipality. The National Treasury is revitalizing support for development of long-term financial plans. These plans will improve project identification, sustainable planning, cash flows, and inform financial decisions. This will negate the challenge of unfunded mandates and limited capacity to maintain infrastructure and sustain services. Further structural reforms are underway, including a comprehensive review of the local government fiscal framework, together with the comprehensive review of the local government work paper. Together, these reforms will modernize the intergovernmental system and build a more capable, resilient, and appropriate differentiated local government sphere. There's what we have called the metro trading system, which we have been raising in Parliament. Essentially what it means that we are incentivizing municipalities to treat their water services and their electricity utilities as business entities which should be run professionally. As a result, we are providing money for this purpose to incentivize municipalities, and we're providing about 27.7 billion. So, and another one, 64 billion. But let me just tell an important story. If you pay an electricity to a municipality, you are not paying an electricity bill outside the bill of the municipality. And if you are paying water, you are not paying outside the water separately. What are the side effects of this? Some effect of this. Johannesburg. They collect about 9 billion rand on water. But because it goes into the main port, what actually comes back into investment into the water, Johannesburg water, is 1 billion rand out of that 9 billion rand. The implications are services. There's no maintenance of the water system. I'm not saying that's the only problem with the water challenge we face. That's one minor problem. If we solve that problem, we can be able to fix leaks and so on. But it won't deal with the fundamental challenge, which is the infrastructure they are dealing with is old. A challenge we need to be discussing as government is how do we deal with that infrastructure. A second area I want to deal with on municipalities is the reform of the infrastructure grant system, municipal infrastructure grant system. Let me just again capture this thing by using an example. Capture this system by using an example. When in 2024, some municipalities had disaster and we provided them with money. In 2025, the same municipalities, there was disaster in the same municipalities. When we gave them the money in 2025, they had not used the 2024 money. Now, the point is, it's easy to say the money returns back to Treasury, but the effect of it is that the communities that have lost a bridge or something and still have that problem. So in this regard, the grant system will be reformed to make sure that we are going to provide the money to those institutions, even the district municipality or other accredited institutions, which will help those municipalities to provide the service. That's how this grant is going to be working. Now, coming to the infrastructure issues. Somebody says to me, what is this? Every day you talk about $1 trillion. Yes, because I'm announcing $1 trillion now. In the next outer year, I'll be adding another amount. It will still remain $1 trillion. So it's a rolling thing. How is this trillion broken down? 507 billion rand will be spent by state-owned companies and other public entities. All right? 217.8 billion rand by provinces and 205.7 billion by municipalities. Largely by sector, transport and logistics make up the largest share. SANRAL will focus on strengthening long-term network resilience. This includes the annual maintenance of approximately 27,000 kilometers and the resurfacing of 2,000 kilometers of road. PRASA, as I've indicated, continues to implement its corridor recovery program and modernize core infrastructure to rebuild reliable, affordable rail service for commuters. This will enable the increase in annual passenger trips from 77 million trips in 24-25 to between 250 and 450 million trips over the medium term. In energy, investment will focus on improving the security of supply and mobilize private sector investment. In the medium-term budget policy, we announced that National, together with the World Bank, are making significant progress with the credit guarantee vehicle. The credit guarantee vehicle, which will support massive investment in transmission infrastructure, will be incorporated as a company in the coming months. Next Next, we expect development partners to confirm their capital participation. Thereafter, the credit guarantee vehicle will apply for a license from the Prudential Authority. We are targeting the credit guarantee vehicle to be operational later this year. In water, investment are directed towards high-impact bulk water augmentation schemes, refurbishing of aging infrastructure, and the completion of strategic projects that support economic nodes and agriculture and household supply. Honored members, we continue to implement reforms to unlock greater private sector participation, enhance spending efficiency, and shorten delivery timelines. On triple Ps, we have amended the triple regulations as we have indicated. There are about 63 projects now at different stages of development. Key amongst them are the 6 border posts that we have announced in time, which are ready to be announced towards the finalization towards the end of the financial of the year. Similar progress with the Gautrain is being made. Conclusion of this project will close major PP transaction in more than 5 years. On the budget facility for infrastructure, the budget facility for infrastructure has approved 21.9 billion for 5 major projects. These include Transnet's coal and iron ore corridor projects, which will restore rail capacity to 7 million tons for coal line and 60 million tons for the iron ore line, and the Polokwane Regional Water Waste Program. As part of the efforts to position infrastructure as an inevitable asset class, government issued an infrastructure bond in 2025, raising 11.5 billion to support the contribution of the BFI approved projects. The BFI call for proposal for 26-27 cycle opens today, Dr. Mtswalet. What that means, both of those people who want to funding via the budget facility for infrastructure need to submit through the window which has been opened from today. We call on public institutions in key sectors of the economy to submit proposals with funding gaps and strategic value for consideration. This includes critical social infrastructure such as courts, correctional facilities. I know Dr. Groenewald has shown a keen interest in 2 specific prisons to be accommodated in this regard. These include also university infrastructure such as the University of Ekurhuleni. University of Ekurhuleni, I don't think is far from a realization, Mr. President. After your speech, I tried to dig into it and understand where it is. And it turns out the University of Ekurhuleni, there were 3 sites that were identified. There's 1 site which is proposed. All we need is the minister to go and visit the sites and make the approval. Once he has done that, according to the document, I'm learning, according to the document, all he needs to do is appoint a supervising university. Included in this project is going to be student accommodation. Again, I was talking to the minister, Mr. President, and said it's going to be difficult for me to teach a communist about decommodification of student accommodation, because that's essentially the proposal I was putting across to him. On the health front, Dr. Mtswalet has been up and fighting with me in every budget about 3 specific hospitals. George Munkari Academic Hospital, Inkosi Albert Lutilo Hospital, and Nelson Mandela Hospital. These are the hospitals which will form part of the BFI in the next round. And they are quite important in two respects, because they are linked to academic institutions. And secondly, are a demonstration of our commitment that we want to prepare for the implementation of the national health insurance by improving the quality of our institutions. Madam Speaker, progressive realization of the fundamental socio-economic rights enshrined in our Constitution is essential to our mission to deal with inequality, poverty, and unemployment. It is a mission that demands that we make prudent fiscal choices. With the health of our public finances comes a great degree of economic freedom and sovereignty. It is this sovereignty that gradually frees us from over-reliance on external debt. It shields us from inherent uncertainties of global finance and global politics. As we have witnessed over the last few years, the established norms of global order can shift and be undermined. To achieve our ultimate goal of better the lives of our people, we must continue pursuing this sovereignty. A budget and a fiscal strategy that advances inclusive growth and the sustainability of public finances is a crucial part of achieving this greater freedom. It moves us closer to fulfilling our constitutional promise to do all that it takes for our people to live with a dignity and prosperity. Madam Speaker, I'm grateful to the President and the Deputy President for their support and leadership. Thank you to Deputy Ministers of Finance, Mr. Sharupain and Dr. Masondo. Mr. Sharupain tells me that he wants also to be doctor. So he wants to do a PhD in fiscal rules. So he's going to compete with Masondo, not to be the only doctor in the So I'm thankful to my deputy ministers and my director bank. Let me thank my colleagues in the Ministers' Committee on the Budget and the Budget Council who have shared the task of difficult trade-offs that have to be made in the budget process. Similarly, to the parliamentary committees of Finance and Appropriation, I express my sincere appreciation. And of course, to my dear wife who has made me so nice looking today. Even the president, I asked him today when he called me to the cabinet, I said, "What is my business here, Mr. President?" He said, "No, we wanted to see how do you look like today." Madam Speaker, let me also take this opportunity to thank the Commissioner of SARS. The Commissioner of SARS, in order to have a better appreciation Where is he?
Order, honorable members. Actually, the minister was asking the commissioner to stand up. But I am grateful that all of you gave the commissioner a standing ovation.
Yeah. The problem is the members didn't even allow to contextualize this thing, because it's quite important for, when we thank the commissioner for the services done over 7 years, we've got to look at the kind of institution he inherited when he took over 7 years ago. It was an institution which was kind of hollowed out, not almost close to non-functionality, to what the institution which the President in the State of the Nation address called one of the best institutions we've had. That's what the Commissioner has done, and we thank him for that. And on behalf of government, I wish to express that unwavering support and thankful to them, because by the next budget, there'll probably be a new commissioner. That depends on the President. There'll probably be a new commissioner of that. So I also thank every South African. The budget reflects our shared journey and the belief that together we can build more equally, more prosperous economy. Yakuqala kaChalbongo ikwenkwenku. Ngamachaba namabhongo kaChalbongo ke lawo. Enkosi.
Enoch, umamchawe.
Order,
Dibo.
order. Can we be seated? Thank you very much, Minister of Finance, for the presentation of the budget and the tabling of the budget instruments, which will now be referred to the appropriate committees for their consideration, and they will come back to the House. Minister, I'm sure you forgot one last sentence of thanking people. I want to thank all these members of Parliament who last year, despite the challenges of having 2.1, 3 point something, but they managed, worked hard, particularly our committees on finance and appropriation, to make sure that in July we were able to pass the budget. It wasn't an easy year, but I think these members of Parliament lived up to the task at hand. Thank you very much to all the honorable members. I will now ask
occur, otherwise you're spending money in a wasteful framework. So ultimately this is a good beginning, but we have a long way to go to ensure we grow our economy.
And if you say we have a long way
I'm very pleased. I think it's a great budget. I think it consolidates tax cuts. It has medical tax credits going up, but I think it's good news for South Africa and good news for the economy. And this is exactly a demonstration of a government at work. I think it also vindicates our fight against the 2% VAT increase last year. It's very clear it wasn't needed, and we have been able to find savings, and we have been able to put on the table a budget now that really speaks to where we are as a country. And I think that we've got a long way to go, but I think citizens can start to see now that this is a government that's serious about growth and serious about the economy.
And your department is happy?
Yeah, we're happy. We're obviously going to be getting money for extension officers, and obviously in the fight against foot and mouth disease, so we're very pleased about that. Agriculture exports grew 10% year on year, so we have been a net contributor to the economy, and we hope that with the right support we'll be able to continue with that.
While we have you, Minister, can you please tell us more about the vaccines for foot and mouth disease? Where are we at right now?
Well, we've had the first 1 million come in from Argentina. They arrived on Saturday. There's a further 1.5 million arriving on this Saturday from Dolvet in Turkey. And thereafter that, the next lot of Biogenesis Bago, the batch of 5 million arrives. And thereafter, both Dolvet and Biogenesis Bago can provide us with 5 million each, respectively, every single month. So we're well on track to meet our target of vaccinating 80% of the national herd by December.
Thank you so much, Minister. That's the Agriculture Minister, John Steenhuisen. Mr. Kwame?
No, let the President speak. I'm not going to comment. The President and the spokespeople of the speak. I don't want to be rude, but this is the...
On your screen right now, you are seeing people exiting the dome here at Parliament, where Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana delivered his budget speech. We will be asking Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber his thoughts regarding today's budget. There have been mixed reactions so far. With us right now, we do have Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber. Doctor, what do you think of today's budget? Your other party members, such as the Agriculture Minister, say that it is a step in the right direction.
Yes, it absolutely is a major step forward for South Africa's economy. I don't recall seeing tax relief at this scale, certainly since I've been in Parliament. So if we look at bracket creep relief for income tax, we look at the increases to the VAT registration threshold for small businesses, the increase in the threshold for selling your primary property. These are all ways that we're putting money back into South Africans' pockets. And I think it really vindicates the tough conversations we sometimes had to have last year on the VAT, saying we don't have to increase VAT if we can get growth going. We can actually turn it around and start putting now. I think on this side, of course, for me, the investment in the Border Management Authority is so incredibly welcome. The BMA only has 600 border guards as we speak, but we've now seen an allocation over the next 3 years, 990 million, which will enable us to employ more than 700 additional people, investments in technology. So we've really built a strong foundation at the BMA, and this is a great investment that will pay off for South Africa going forward.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And then the SIU obviously released a damning report saying that South Africa was sold one permit at a time. What are your remarks in that regard?
Well, we had a full press briefing on it earlier this week, but really that period between 2004 and 2024 that the SIU report covered has given us the most extensive look at some of the corruption issues we are resolving there. So there's an old saying that sunlight is the best disinfectant, and we now have fully shed light on the problem, and we've also taken active steps towards accountability. We've fired 55 officials already, 20 in the last year since April, 275 criminal referrals, a number of disciplinary matters still underway to deal with those people that are involved in this. Beyond that, though, we are also fully reforming the system. If you look at the SIU's recommendations, they all focus on the fact that officials have too much discretion. They're using paper-based manual processes to manipulate outcomes. Our investment in the electronic travel authorization, AI, machine learning technology automates the visa application process, removing the space for that kind of discretion. I always say you can't bribe a computer, and sometimes it comes down to that. So yes, I think it's important for us to shed light on what those problems look like, but also the reform process that is underway, I think, is only further charged up by the reality that we're on the right track. We just need to accelerate.
Thank you so much. And lastly, can you just tell us where you are currently at in regards to the smart IDs?
Yeah, so last year we issued a record 4 million smart IDs. It's up from 2.7 million that used to be the average before. But this year I think we're going to go even higher than that, because we really, within the next few weeks, will be launching our project with the banks, where we've launched a new digital partnership with the banking sector, where we are bringing Home Affairs Smart ID and eventually passport services to hundreds of bank branches across the country, massively improving access, and through a very simplified process that will take a few minutes to apply for your Smart ID at your local bank branch. Again, automated, using technology, not dependent on an official and the discretion that goes with that. So I think another big year ahead for Home Affairs.
Thank you so much, Minister. That is the DA Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Leon Schreiber, saying he welcomes the budget and says it is a step in the right direction. Says there's still a long way to go.
And you were part of that. You know him? Yes, I do.
We are bringing you live visuals as MPs and other guests are exiting the dome at Parliament. We will be asking Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gates McKenzie his thoughts on today's budget. Hi Minister, do you have a minute for us please?
I'll always.
Thank you. This is Sports, Arts and Culture Minister Gates McKenzie. Minister, what do you make of today's speech?
I'm ecstatic. I can tell you this is one of the best budgets I've had opportunity to be part of. We are moving forward. I'm really excited for the fact that the South African Defence Force has gotten more money to fight gangsterism and the ills in our community. I'm also happy with small businesses that got the boost, because South Africa has got not only an unemployment problem, but a youth unemployment problem. And some of the youth don't want a 9 to 5. They want to start the 9 to 5. And that's important. And today, that opportunity has been has been created for them. So I can tell you, South Africa's turned the corner. No matter who tells you what, we've got low levels of inflation. The rand is strengthening. You have load shedding, it's out of the way. Crime is coming down. So somebody to tell you we haven't turned the corner doesn't know what they're talking about. We have turned the corner in South Africa, and I can tell you that GNU is working under the leadership of His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa. We are very happy with the progress we are seeing.
And what's next for your department?
Very, very big things, very, very big things. I can tell you, we are bringing Live Golf, the first time it's coming to Africa. Live Golf. We've sold close to 80,000 tickets. That's never been on the African continent. Later this year, we have what you call them Zanzibar, Africa's first mega concert coming. We have got South Africa Walk coming, where the whole of South Africa is going to park their cars and we are going to walk. We've got we are going to the World Cup. The last time we qualified for the World Cup was 2 decades ago. But because you have the Minister of Happiness, the Minister that makes things happen, you have the coaches, you have everybody, you've got the supporters, the 12th men, all of us, you put us all together. And that's the reason why our sport is turning. Not one person, it's the players, it's the coaches, it's the people, it's the environment that is being created. South Africa is the greatest country in the world. And you're going to see that. You know, we are rolling out in the rural areas everywhere. We are rolling out combi courts for our children. A child in sport is a child out of court. We've got great things coming.
And will we ever see Formula One coming to South Africa?
Formula One is on its way. Let me tell you, VAR is coming to the PSL. VAR is coming to the PSL. Next season there will be VAR in the PSL. Treasury has given the money. And you can call Treasury to ask them, did you give the money? This one. F1 will come. I've got 2.1 billion. The guarantee is there. But you know what? We want to be prepared. We've done the difficult part of F1. The difficult part of F1 is to get the guarantee. Cabinet has given me the guarantee. Now, I need to put together a local organizing committee that will deliver on it. So we're looking at 2008, 2009. Nobody's putting a gun to our head and say it has to be next week. So South Africa has turned the corner. I can tell you, the rand has strengthened. We've got the low levels of inflation. We've got load shedding has been dealt with. Jobs are now being created. So the curve is upwards. There's no better country. So I'm telling you today that our country is now investable again. I'm speaking to investors all the time, coming from the corporate world. They are keen, they are hungry to invest in our country again. And we've got, look, we beat India now. Our football is great. We've got great people in football. It's one of the great guys in football standing there. You know, last time was not so good for him, but yeah.
And then just lastly, Minister, in the run-up, as leader now of the Patriotic Alliance, in the run-up to the local government elections, your party is making inwards in a lot of small municipalities. Can you please comment on that as well?
No, that's your mistake you're making. What small municipalities? Is Joburg a small municipality?
No, I'm referring to George, a 55-seat council.
Say only in small municipalities. You must give the facts. Joburg is not a small municipality. The ANC has never lost a by-election or election in Soweto. They've lost one now because of the PA. Here in the Western Cape, where you and me are standing, the DA has never been beaten in the city of Cape Town and the ANC. We've taken Kensington from them. We are the fastest growing political party. We've grown by 4,000%. Your newspaper wrote that story. So we are the fastest growing political party. There will not be a president that will be chosen here. The next president, who will ever say in who becomes the next president in this country. We are the fastest growing political party. We are winning awards. In this month alone, we've won, in 3 weeks, we've won 3 awards. George, we are taking. Tomorrow we're removing the DA from Saldanha. If they allow the motion of no confidence, then we're coming to George. It's now PA's time. For too long, here in the Western Cape, our people here in Guguletu, in Langa, in Mitchell's Plain, they have been overlooked. But now under the Patriotic Alliance, That will not happen.
And that brings me to my next and final question, Minister. The State of the Province address will be delivered tonight by Premier Alan Winde. What do you want to hear from him?
I've got no hope of Premier Alan Winde, no hope. He only cares about us people that live there in the suburbs. I live in the suburbs here. Only care about us. What about in Langa? The rats are eating. There's rats in Langa, in Guguletu. So I've got no hope. Go tell him I said I've got no hope. He will deliver. The DA here is only delivering to the wealthy. They don't care about black people in Khayelitsha. Go and see in Khayelitsha now. I can take you if you have time. Go see how the sewage is there. Go to Mitchell's Plain. There's nothing. So don't ask me, do I have hope? I've got zero hope. I'm not even going to listen to him because he's just going to talk nonsense.
Thank you so much, Minister. We appreciate that. That is the Sports, Arts and Culture Minister, Gaten McKenzie, and the leader of the Patriotic Alliance. He was full of praise for Minister Enoch Godongwana's budget.
So all the hospitals are
have our assets and money and pay and we want to get how parafund and the funds that are recovered from stolen assets are being utilized to strengthen our justice system, our police supporting our defense. It's quite important.
you need now.
What is good about the first draft?
Can I have a minute?
What we have done, we have already started the forms from the time of the zone commission, the establishment of IDEC, the appointment of the judges, the regulation by the and that's why when you get coming outside the community and the grassroots side, you don't say this is what you already think about how that mechanisms within justice and those are assets. But that's what we are saying. When we looked at it, they fight against organized crime. It's quite critical. And that's
I am going to give you
We are reporting live from Parliament at the Dome where Minister Enoch Godongwana delivered his budget. The reactions have been predominantly positive, with only so far Bold One South Africa's Musima. The DA's Agriculture Minister John Steenhuisen, as well as Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber, welcomes the budget. Sports, Arts and Culture Minister and also Patriotic Alliance leader Gaten McKenzie also welcomes the budget. We will shortly speak to the Commissioner of the South African Revenue Service, Edward Kieswetter. For SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter to wrap up, and then we will grab him and ask him for his reaction.
I'm eavesdropping. Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm sure communicating. So, yeah.
What's that? My name is
With us right now is Action SA's Athol Trollop, and he's going to be giving his reaction right now to the budget. Mr. Trollop, what is your reaction to the budget?
Well, look, first of all, we think it's a better budget than last year, obviously, not as controversial. We're very pleased that we've been vindicated for our call for better funding for SARS. SARS has shown again that if you fund them properly, and we saw all the standing ovation for the SARS Commissioner, if you fund them properly, they can. So that means that the taxman doesn't have to get into your and my pocket. Actually start growing, because it's been at R1 million for 14 years. It's just unacceptable, and I've been approached by a lot of small businesses, so I'm pleased the Minister addressed that. Border management funding, the Border Management Agency funding is recognised and appreciated, because we're very concerned that the illicit economy, that doesn't only happen through crime, and our economy is stubborn absorbent that right the unemployed 12 million people and money, because there are too many people on the street who should be in courts and in jail, and they haven't been able to lack of funding, and this will go a long way to improving that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Trollop. That is Action SA's Athol Trollop.
youth unemployment? Are we broadening the base for our students that finish grade 12 to go on to tertiary education? Are we creating an environment that is conducive to growth, to economic growth? Because obviously we need to get to that 3% growth point so that we can have the economy grow and create opportunities of employment.
I want to start with, you were talking about creating employment, and I think it's a very important point. And I think I made notes to get to that later, but I think maybe we should actually start with that. The skills levy that the finance minister spoke about, making sure that we get more people ready for work to tackle unemployment. Is enough being done? Did he say enough about that in order for us to see some positive movements to tackling this mass youth unemployment that we're seeing in the country?
Well, the first thing we should be speaking about is government inefficiencies and bureaucracies, right? So there are good things that the SETAs have done, but there are many, many bad things. He even acknowledges the National Skills Fund that is not operating effectively. And it's the same issue that we have with NSFAS. So instead of having this bureaucratic systems, why don't we have departments within the Department of Higher Education and Training, have a policy environment that we don't have this duplicated costs. The important thing for us is to create jobs for our youth. We have the second highest youth unemployment rate in the world, and that's nothing to be proud of. But when we speak about SETAs, about the fraud and corruption, etc., that is there, I'm glad that the minister has now got his eye on the ball and that he's going to address these systemic challenges that we are facing. Certainly for employers, it was cut back from the 40% for the mandatory grant to 20%, but he has brought the 40% back. So really what government is saying is employers must do more of the training, the base that they are paying on the skills levy, more of that will be coming back to employers, which really is an impediment on the SETAs because their sector skills plans haven't done enough to create employment within those environments.
We spoke a little bit before the finance minister delivered his budget. We were speaking about education as a big and important aspect in tackling some of the social ills that we do face, like crime. Now, we've seen, okay, SANDF is going to get an additional 1 billion rand to fight crime. The police are there to fight crime. The SANDF is not there to fight crime. We are trying to treat the symptom and not the disease itself. What other areas do you feel we should be, in addition to education, should be prioritizing to help quell those social ills so that we don't see the resultant crime that we are now having to fight?
Well, certainly, deploying the army to go and fight in communities, a lot of the communities have expressed that they are happy about that. But that is because they're feeling unsafe, right? So what do we need to do? We need to ensure that there's social security. We need to ensure that when people leave grade 12, that they have the opportunity for tertiary study. We need to create an environment that is fiscally conducive for investment, foreign direct investment, so that the economy can grow, so that we then stop looking at the symptoms. Because you're quite right. Unless we deal with the fabric of what is wrong, we are just going to deploy resources to fight something and never get to the heart of changing things that are so critically important.
Let's talk about some of those social grants and support for communities directly now. And we look at what Minister Godongwana has said. I mean, social wage accounting for 60% of the budget. Are these increases, I've heard 80 Rand per month increase on an old age grant. There's a 20 Rand here, another 80 Rand there. Is it enough? Is it enough? Is government doing enough to support indigent communities and those who really could use an additional hand up?
Well, the difficulty is obviously that we only have so much money, right? And the minister has to balance the budget. Is it enough? The answer is no. And we can never, ever not give people a basic income grant, whatever we call it. We can call it a job seekers grant. We can call it, the COVID fund, whatever it is. But we cannot leave 8 million people exposed, not knowing where their next meal comes from. Now, it is very complex because you're right. A basic food basket for a household of 4 costs 5,400 Rand a month. So what are we expecting these people to eat? What are we expecting, as a survivalist element for them to make of this money? The basic income grant, the basic salary, the minimum wage is 4,800 Rand a month. So people can't even eat enough from that. So certainly We would love to give more, and we should be giving more, but where do we find the money from? And unless the economy grows, unless we strengthen, unless our debt ratio improves significantly, we certainly cannot give more at this stage, although we should.
Yeah. Just coming to the debt ratio. I mean, we're looking at the debt to GDP sort of peaking at, I think, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana saying 78.9%, and then looking at that number coming down. How is that managed? Help me, who may not understand how the debt to GDP ratio is managed. How is that managed? How do we achieve a peak? How do we start bringing that number down?
So the important thing in the economic fundamentals is obviously what we borrow versus what we have in the budget, right? So what is that deficit? The second thing is that we have to borrow money for specific projects to fill that gap, right? Now, currently, we're taking 5% of this 2.7 trillion to service our debt. Now, we're talking about billions of rands. So the thing that we need to work towards is to reduce our debt ratio so that we're not spending so much money on servicing the debt, but also that the economy expands and grows enough to generate funds so that we don't have to borrow from third parties to equalize the budget. We need to spend more money on the economy, but it is unsustainable to keep on borrowing. So it's a similar situation that we have with NSFAS. If we look at the sum, 137 billion rand that the Department of Higher Education and Training gets, about 93 billion goes to the university branch, but more and more of that every year is eroding away from the university budget. Now, NSFAS as a concept, I am completely behind. Because it is the direct result of 5 million graduates that never would have had that opportunity. And not just for themselves, they've lifted their families and their communities out of debt. So it is a brilliant thing, but it is not sustainable in its current form. So, you know, the point I was making is that, so NSFAS takes more and more of the university budget. So what do you have to start compromising on now? You can't have full-time staff in universities. You have to get part-time staff because you have to balance the budget, right? The university infrastructure, you know, you'll go on to many of the universities and you know what I'm talking about. You can see eroding infrastructure, right? Because they have to balance the budget. And this is the complexity that we sit with. A very good social system, but it is compromising the overall system. So how do we balance that? So we can't keep on borrowing money because we have to service the debt, the interest, and we still have to pay back on the capital amount of that debt. So I've made a very simplistic example, but I hope that brings the point.
No, I think a lot of our readers and our viewers need to understand that concept. And you're absolutely right. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana only has so much money to play around with. Speaking of, when we look at how do we get more money, well, either you can increase taxes on an already overburdened South African consumer, or you can find and plug those leaks where money is being maybe inefficiently used, where budgets are not being spent effectively. And we were looking at, I think it was an amount of 12 billion rand in terms of savings that are being used to fund some of these initiatives. Is that enough? Are we doing enough? Is there maybe more opportunity for us to efficientize some of that spend in our government departments?
Well, we need to do more, right? And the first thing is that people that are found to have committed fraud, they need to be behind bars. And the South African citizens need to see that. So yes, there's a lot of administrative inefficiencies, but I think a lot of the government will is there to change that, right? And at national government, we can see that there's much better accountability. And people are, you know, for lack of a better word, they are being exited from departments for not having this fiscal discipline. The second thing, as you say, is we can't tax to death a tax base. So so 40%, just about 40%, 39-point-odd% of individual taxpayers form the base of our tax, right? 17% is for corporate tax. But out of the tax base that we have, 1 million people pay about 67% of the entire tax of that, almost 40% income. So we can't keep on taxing them. We have some of the highest taxes in the world. So a great thing that the minister said is that those brackets are going to move. Because what we didn't have for the last 2 years is there was no amendment So you get your inflationary increase, which bumps you into a higher tax bracket, which means you, at the end of the month, you have less money because you're being taxed at a higher level. So they're going to move that along, and that's great, because certainly that will give people more disposable income in their pockets, and the same with the tax credits. But the other thing that we can do is create a policy environment where foreign direct investment, where more and more people invest in the country, and that obviously, the good signs for that is that our ratings have improved. We've gone off the grey list. So people now feel confident to invest in this emerging market. And we've done well in that, but we could do more. But the fiscal environment has improved significantly, and we must acknowledge that under Minister Godongwana's reign.
No, I'm very glad to hear that. I want to move now to consumers, and obviously the big thing everybody always wants to know is, where does my sin tax increase? What is my excise duty? How is that going to increase? So we did hear that the cost of beer and wine and spirits and all of the things that are not necessarily good for you, you're going to have to pay more for that, and that's okay, right? But when we look at the fuel levies, so there's the general levy, the road accident levy, and the fuel levy, we're looking at about a total of 21 cents a litre additionally on top of what we are already paying. And I think that kind of leaves consumers quite frustrated, because when they see international oil prices and they look at the strength of the rand, and they say, but then why should we be paying so much for our fuel? What is your take on that and those increases of cumulatively 21 cents a litre?
Well, I think that the minister was clever, because he can never ever in his life go near the VAT issue again. And certainly we didn't want another year of absolute volatility in that environment. And as per last year, you know, this is an easy way to get money in. Obviously, he's coming off the back of strengthening commodity prices, which has generated more tax revenue for us in South Africa. And certainly what that means for us is, yes, we're paying more for fuel, but the knock-on effect on that, right, is that food prices will be impacted. Transport costs will be impacted. And you and I had a discussion earlier about that there are people that pay between 30 and 50% of their monthly income to get to work. And that certainly speaks to one of the issues that the minister raised, is that we need social housing close to where people work. So not just for the elite and for the foreigners to come in and buy property in this beautiful, we're in Cape Town now, so I have to make reference of that. But you know, to be in the inner city, people need to be close to where they work. And the thing that we need to work on is to have a free public transport system in the future, because that will really incrementally improve the lives of people.
Do you see something like that in our future? We consider Operation Vulindlela, where there is a very focused spend on infrastructure development. We've heard through the BFI and various other initiatives, there is definitely a focus on infrastructure spend. Public transport infrastructure, do you see a future where we can have an efficient rail system? I'm so glad that Transnet is using rail again to move coal and other heavy goods. But for people movement, I think it is also critically important that we have that available to people, a system that works, that is easy, that is able to transport masses of people to where they need to be in order to get to their jobs.
And that is, I couldn't say it better than you've just said it, right? The issue is that they have to invest in the railways. They have to invest in our harbours, because that brings a lot of money in for us with, you know, the taxes that we're able to generate through that. But we have to get to a situation where transport is prioritised, and I don't feel enough is being done. Transnet went through a very volatile few years, but certainly we've seen that they are posting profits, that things are looking better, and that they're starting to focus on the economic elements that will drive expansion of the economy. So very important. And obviously provincial governments need to take accountability. We can't just throw everything at national government. Provincial governments must prioritize these elements. And specifically, you know, the minister speaks about people being on indigent lists. What are we doing about taking a large portion of a society that might be illiterate, don't have the money to go and register themselves on an indigent list. What are we doing around that social construct to enable that, as opposed to making it a deterrent or really a barrier for people to access the social services that are available?
I want to come back to the discussion point about national government versus provincial and local. There's a lot that we can unpack there. But you did mention economic growth and expanding that economic growth. And the finance minister mentioning that global growth is sitting at about the 3.3% forecast rate. Growth in South Africa predicted to be 1.6% this year, expanding even further. I mean, it's already 0.2 percentage points higher than last year, but predicting growth of 2% by 2028. It does seem like we're on the right track.
We're doing the right things, right? But there needs to be a political will, not just in years of election. We need to follow through. We need to prioritize, and there needs to be accountability. And the biggest thing, obviously, is that the minister spoke about making more money available to get skilled and qualified people into government positions. You know, the days of cronyism is long gone, and we need to understand that government needs to deliver for the people. We cannot have, at this day and age, people that do not have meals, people that can't access proper healthcare facilities. The government has done a lot of good. Let's not negate that. You know, unfortunately, there's been some eras where some of the theft, the blatant theft that occurred in government has really set us back a number of years. But currently, there's decisive action. We can see that there's movement, and government is moving in the right direction.
You mentioned now about an election year, and this kind of segues nicely into my question around national government. What is national government responsible for? What is local government responsible for? What is provincial government responsible for? We are in an election year. It is local government elections. It's the year of the election where you see physically what your government is doing for you, right? Because this is the election that talks about, do I have running water? Where in many parts of Gauteng at the moment, we don't. The finance minister alluded to that, the failing water infrastructure that we've got and the maintenance or lack thereof. We're looking at, in local government elections, in a local government election year, potholes. Are my street lights working? Is it safe for me to go to the store or to a communal toilet at night? How much does that factor in, considering we've given, I think it was 1.1 billion to the IEC to run the local government elections? How much of this thinking of, we're in an LGE year, how much of that thinking factors in, do you think, to a budget speech like this?
A lot. I mean, there's no getting away from it. It's, when we have national elections, we see things like, presidential employment summits and a big increase of people during that period. But the unfortunate thing is that it's easy for us. We can afford. I live in Gauteng. My community, I live in an area that is described as upper middle class, Bryanston, where the people regularly don't have water. They don't have electricity, but we're in a fortunate position where we can have solar and we can have a borehole. But it's not about us, right? We make up a small part of the community. It's about the people that we drive into informal settlements that don't have running water permanently. For us, it's an inconvenience. For them, it's a way of life. But then on the back end of that, we have to see how many households have been equipped with water during this period. And we can never, for the next 50 years, we cannot walk away from the legacy of apartheid. But we need to prioritize funding in the right areas and get competent, skilled people. The presidential climate commissioners that were now appointed, I mean, you have to look at that and be grateful, because for the first time there's a cohort of people that are absolutely competent, were appointed on merit, and I can see that more and more in the boards of structures, of government entities that are being appointed. So I think there is a seriousness in that. So when you speak about national government. Obviously, those are the national departments, all sitting in Pretoria, servicing whatever needs to be done by Parliament. We've got our provincial government that runs, that really has to look after what happens in the province, and then we have our municipalities, and that's where our biggest stress factors are in, because they are not running their municipalities effectively, and we can see that from how many of them fail their audits.
Yeah. And how many of them are placed under administration currently?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, a lot of work for us to be done. Any other closing thoughts, Dr. Meyer, before we close out?
I think that I must tell you honestly that I'm feeling optimistic about the future, but we must also, as we go forward, we need to hold our government to account. If you pick a particular political party, they are there to work for the people, and we must understand that. And as citizens, it's as Aristotle said, it's the people that sit back and don't step up when they allow people that shouldn't be in office to be in office. So certainly hold people to account, and we have to ensure that as a society we move forward, and that the social project, the social construct of our society is always front and center of what we do.
Thank you very much. Dr. Linda Meyer, who is the MD of Rosebank College, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. My name has been Lance Witten. That is a wrap from us here in Cape Town. We will return you to your regular programming.